if you're going to remove Eben from hotboxing, don't call it hotboxing. Yesterday, I was on YouTube and I saw that a new episode of Hotboxing was out. One of my favorite comedians on one of my favorite podcasts. This I have to see. So I clicked on the episode and right away, bam! The like to dislike ratio is unlike anything I've ever seen on this channel. I start thinking, is this CNN? Is this Fox News? Why is the like to dislike ratio so bizarre? Is this the Ellen DeGeneres show featuring Bill Gates? Like, what's going on here? And then I noticed the show looks entirely different. What was once this very intimate, monochromatic, black and white, moody, raw show now seems to look like a production. It looks like it feels too produced. It feels like they're on a production and they're not on a podcast. And I think this was very telling. Within the first 30 seconds, Bill Bur makes a comment about how many cameras are on the set.
This is the most cameras I've ever seen on a podcast in my life.
And you've got
more cameras than people.
I'm shocked that the producers of this podcast thought Eben was someone that they could replace, or I would be even more shocked to think that whatever he brought to the podcast, they thought it was something that the podcast didn't need. And I'm here to tell you that we need what exactly you took away from us, the fans. I'm going to take a wild guess and guess that the majority of the people watching this podcast are males, 18 to 40. And I'm going to take a wild guess and say that one of the things we enjoyed most about the show was the vulnerability that Eben showed episode after episode.
You don't realize how many lives you're changing, saving, because of who you are and what you've been through and how you're willing to speak about it now.
It's clear to me that Eben was able to bring out maybe a side of Mike that people don't typically associate with him, which is softness, openness, love. And there's special people and there's special friends who really bring out the best in us. And Eben was able to do that for Mike and the guests. And his energy is what really helped make the podcast what it is. Yes, the guests are there for Mike. Yes, Mike does a lot of the talking, most of the talking. But that's talking is largely influenced by how Eben makes him feel. And if Eben makes him feel safe and loved, which he did, they're able to reach some beautiful moments in the podcast, which the podcast is full of.
Well, I love you, dude.
And I love you as well, you know.
I don't know. I don't know why. But it's like you're my brother.
I agree. I am your brother. I want to be your brother.
And when I see love on display without any inhibitions or fear of judgment in its expression from friend to friend, from man to man, that inspires me to move into a greater place of love in my friendships. And that's because, Eben, there's no denying his masculinity. The dude played in the NFL. He's built like a Viking. Honestly, if he fought Mike Tyson, I don't know who would win. He looks very much like a man. When the Greeks carved statues, they were carving Ebens. They weren't carving Jeremys. But he has this very manly exterior. And he's also able to explore and let himself be everything that he is inside too, which is not just ambition and the pursuit of things and perseverance and resilience and motivation and all these yang masculine qualities. He also lets himself be and come. He lets the yin energy in him flow. He's not afraid to incorporate the feminine, and he's not afraid to let both polarities play in his psyche. And that was a beautiful thing, because as men, we don't get to see that, and we need role models. We need spiritual role models in our life. We need ideals to strive for. We need to see examples of people walking a path of those values, so that we can also be less afraid to walk a similar path.
Jokes on them and stuff.
I would have picked Lee Majors personally.
You were saying that your fear is always worse than what it is. Your fear is always worse than what it is.
All of our fears
Your
are.
fear of getting hit.
I have a question.
We
Did
wanna
you
hear
find
your
the coat
question.
first or the boots?
I just want to end this by saying that what has really impressed me and inspired me is just watching Eben's reaction to all of this on Instagram. Eben has talked about what has happened on Instagram. He's let fans know that he wants to go back. He just hasn't heard from the production team, and he's always struggled with the business side of the podcast. And what really amazed me about that video was there was no anger in his voice. There was no resentment. There was no bitterness. There was no ill will or hatred or jealousy of Jeremy. And I can only imagine how much that must hurt the ego to be removed from this thing that you are responsible for creating, and to be kicked off without an explanation, just as it was starting to get the traction it deserved. And then somebody comes in who wasn't there when the videos had less than 100,000 views, and now they have millions. Wasn't there to perhaps, motivate Mike to make it happen. Comes in when it's happened. Comes in after the fact. I can imagine how much that hurts. And I can imagine how the ego in that moment would want to react. And it would want to say mean things, because it is hurt, and it wants to then put that hurt on other people. But what amazed me about Eben is he didn't do that. He handled it without ego. He still managed to react to the situation from a place of love and forgiveness. And that was a beautiful thing to see. Even when he's not on the podcast, he's teaching us. And I wanted to say that this is probably the most profound lesson yet. So I just wanted to say good luck, Eben. As a fan, I can't wait to support what you work on next. I'm excited to listen to your podcasts. I'm excited to support you on Patreon. And I want to thank you for all those moments on the podcast. And I hope that if it's meant to be, and if it's what the universe wants, that you find your way back on HotBoxing.
We're succeeding as brothers and striving as brothers. You know, and this is just emotion. This is the kind of show. This is very emotional. This show. It's ignited with a bunch of passion, a bunch of love and stuff. But it's dealing with the truth too, and dealing with the truth of human beings.